Hey, this is Jim at Broadfield. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Broadfield Live every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You will see that I am being joined in studio this week by Chris Burgos from Elgato. Chris, thank you for joining us.
It's always good to be here, Jim, man.
It's a pleasure to have you. You are no stranger to Broadfield Live. It feels like just yesterday we invited you in studio to launch the Stream Deck Studio. We are going to talk about the Stream Deck Studio again today because in our experience in selling the product, we've seen some great opportunities in the system integrator space, some real great use case scenarios. So today we're going to talk about Stream Deck Studio in action with some of the great opportunities we have for our dealers, right?
Exactly. That's the whole goal is to really highlight what Studio does in these particular environments because there's just so much you can do.
There really is. So we're going to talk a lot about Stream Deck Studio. We'll introduce you to the hardware itself.
Yes.
And of course the bit-focused buttons, the software that supports it all, right?
Right. Buttons is sort of the brain behind the scenes on us to control so many different things. And I'm going to get really specific on, hey, here are kind of things that if you're thinking about in your ecosystem, you can control and give specific names because there's just so many connections.
Awesome. And then we will also talk a little bit about a special promotion that we have going on right now with Elgato. This promotion is not necessarily an end user promotion. This is built for system integrators to offer Stream Deck Studio with all of your installs, all the different applications we're going to talk about today, but also to take advantage of multiple Stream Deck Studios in a workflow where you can use it to help better your production and actually create a control surface environment.
Totally. That's the whole goal of what we're highlighting is, expandability is a big part of what we do with Stream Deck Studio. And that simplicity allows you to really grow any kind of setup, whether that's a corporate setup, whether that's a live event setup, even the traditional broadcast guys. There's a lot of different angles for getting those studios in there.
Absolutely. So for those of you unfamiliar with the Stream Deck Studio, you'll see that we have the Stream Deck family on the table in front of us.
Yes.
The Stream Deck Studio is the largest of them, giving you the most features, capabilities, flexibility, right?
Totally, and it's the one that we built specifically for professionals.
Yep.
I mean, this thing is IP first. It is designed with the sort of necessary things that we only want at the broadcast level, only at the professional level. With the traditional Stream Deck, you're looking at something that's connected to your computer. Maybe you're doing your Twitch stream, your YouTube setup. Maybe you're just using it at home as a user. Everything we wanted to do with Studio was more designed for pro environment, and that's where we see that differentiator with some of the cool features.
Absolutely. Picture these on your desk in a podcast content creation environment. This is going to go in your studio rack and really allow you to set up an environment where your clients can walk in, fire up their whole studio production operation, and get easier production at every step along the way, right?
And in a nutshell, that and so much more is we're going to talk about some of the cool profile capabilities. But yeah, that's the whole goal is that when you approach this device, you are working in a professional environment. Over here, maybe I got my Spotify playlist. Maybe I got the game on a button to pop up, that's what I got. I mean, that's what I have in my desk at home. I have my Stream Deck. But over here, I'm doing something that's strictly designed for these professional use cases. But also can be used by an absolute novice because I can set up different profiles for this guy and have someone who's never operated before. Church volunteer wants to come in, I could have them get in front of the studio and have that specific setup that works just for them.
Absolutely, that's great. It really allows you to hit the production priorities. So we do have a promotion right now. The promotion is based on multi-pack buy-ins on the Stream Deck Studio.
Yes.
It is available now at Broadfield. You can reach out to your Broadfield sales rep. We'll share all the details with you. What we wanted to do was work with you and Vivian at Elgato to make sure we put a package together to go after those large production environments where now multiple Stream Deck Studios are really going to benefit the workflow, right?
Totally. The idea is that we're giving you guys the kinds of combinations we're seeing a lot of. In the last year, there's been a gigantic explosion, especially in the corporate space and some of these broadcast environments where we're not seeing one, we're seeing 50 deployed. So we wanted to say, hey, to our channel and working with you guys, we came together and said, well, what's going to make the most sense? I mean, we want it so that if someone's going to be getting behind Stream Deck from a business perspective, that they have the right options. And so we look at starting with 2 setups, which is we see very common, and then all the way up into a 10 stack of getting these guys deployed at an infrastructural level, maybe multiple sites around a facility. So that was the entire intent was, hey, we're getting these requests, we're seeing them a lot ourselves. Let's give you guys something that just makes sense and is easy to use.
And I know we're going to talk about some of the education uses today.
Yeah.
I know in a back to school time frame, you can talk about multiple Stream Deck Studios being used in a school environment to create a broadcast studio. But you can also talk about taking advantage of these large bundle opportunities with 10 Stream Deck Studios that might be used in 10 different classrooms.
10 different classrooms, a university campus.
Yep.
Maybe you're looking at an entire school system. I mean,
Absolutely.
sometimes these public bids are special. And so, yeah, that's the whole idea for the promotion is why we love working with you guys is we came to the table and really thought about, well, let's look at the last year and what we've been seeing and let's make something that's really effective for these guys.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about Stream Deck Studio
Yeah.
and the universal control capabilities.
When we designed Stream Deck Studio, one of the big requests was how do we take what we've done in the traditional consumer space and then bring that to the professionals? Because we had professionals using something like our XL and just asking for more. And so we built it from the ground up in conjunction with the team at BitFocus to say, we want the answer to always be yes.
Right.
That's inevitably at. So with that in mind, it's our first IP-centric Stream Deck. So we have the network cable here. That's how it's hooked up into the system. It starts on the network. And then from there, we take what we're used to from a user perspective of workflows and allow you to streamline that with profiles, with different visual readouts using the dials. So all of that comes together uniquely in what we do with the Stream Deck. Some of the people in the office here have desktop Stream Decks.
Yep.
And they're actually using some of the buttons to sort of like go through different pages and setups. Here, everything's designed for that ease of use and functionality. And with all of that and the fact that we can get real-time feedback, it allows for these things to be really scalable. I mean, it is so easy to drop 2 or 3 of these in a desktop turret and be ready to go. And hence why we designed the promo so that people could go through and be like, hey, look, these packages make sense for my customers.
And I think the only problem we had with doing the show today was putting this on the table and taking it away from our production team, right?
Yes, I felt bad because the guys had to run it out here, but I was like, hey, you know what? This is a cool use case. To show it as almost just like a display.
Absolutely,
you know?
yep. And as you can see, it starts with the hardware itself. 19-inch rack-mountable solution,
Yeah.
giving you all those buttons you need, and then scalable with multiple units configured into that rack. Right?
The form factor on this guy is so unique. It's so small. I mean, traditionally we think of something that's going to be a rack mount or just any control surface setup. You're eating up a lot of desk space.
Yep.
This guy, you could have 2 little brackets 3D printed and have one set up, 2, 3 stacked up.
Yep.
Very, very easy to work with. Because of some of the other cool features it does, we get things like the NFC reader. So NFC is something I've been talking a lot more with people about, especially in these educational environments and these broadcast multi-purpose rooms where I just want to be able to tap my card in and have my show ready to go.
Okay.
So I could use the students' IDs to basically configure different kind of workflows.
Beautiful.
I could have my TD for my news show in the morning ready, and then the afternoon guys doing sports pops in and just works. So that's a unique feature on the Studio. We talked about that it is IP enabled with the PoE. It also has a front-facing USB dock. So I can use it in conjunction with one of my traditional Stream Decks and have a multi-setup operation where I have my desktop unit right here at my hands and I have my unit in my rack setup going. We see a lot of broadcast environments actually switching to this. So they're progressing from where they were going with the normal Stream Deck and now incorporating the Studio. And I've seen an entire sports league where every single team's logo was a button on the Studio. Pushing the button changed the Studio and configured the XL.
Wow.
They were just so versatile at any given game day. It was just crazy to see.
And versatile really is the key word. It is only limited by how you set it up.
Yeah.
So you are going to bring it into the studio, set it up the way your client needs it to be set up, and then they're ready to go. And it just helps with that production every step of the way.
Yeah, and we just, we have another slide here just showing like the basics, but for those people who do use traditional USB-centric workflows, we can still support that. We would rather you guys use the PoE Plus. And again, those dimensions, this guy is not that big. You can put this, if you are going to put it in a traditional
While you talk about it, I'm going to tilt it up so we can just see
Sure.
how low profile the back of that is.
In a traditional rack environment, we talk about something that's a half rack. This isn't even a quarter. Like this is so small that you could have something else positioned if you were putting it in the actual rack room, a server or something like that, or just the amount of turret space or the amount of space you need on a given desk is a lot less than you would expand. Even if you compare it just here to the Stream Decks with the base, it's almost the exact same depth as one of these guys. So I think at first you may think rack mount, oh man, I've got to have it exclusively in these professional installs. No, you can have this on a desk setup very easily.
Absolutely, and that's what's great. We have it here on just these little desktop ears,
Yeah.
and it's right there. The low profile allows you to set it up. We use it in our studio right underneath the monitors, and it's right there, right behind the control surface. Everything is ready to go. And now from a software perspective, this is where some of that power comes in as well. It is powered by buttons, right?
Yeah, Buttons is a professional-based software. So
Yeah.
what we do is traditionally on Stream Deck, we have our own software that we release. Again, we talked about what that can do for your typical consumer. But in the pro space, something like Buttons allows us to control so many different systems. Today, there's over 800 connections that are supported by Buttons, and that can be all kinds of manufacturers. Specific versions of a different given hardware are nestled in there. And what it does is it's a very smart application. Once you launch it, it'll find the Stream Deck Studio on the network, so you have very little work to do. And then you start to design your own UI setup. I myself like to make the buttons sort of emblematic of what the setup is. So my cameras will have camera icons on them.
Yep.
If I'm doing something with IP like 2110 or something that's remote, I'll use those different icons and I build a very visual design. It's unique in that space that I can drive it as an individual user, entirely set up for my morning show. Maybe my morning show is all in red buttons, but then in the afternoon show, we have green buttons and we're going to choose something like Dante Audio. All of that can be handled with buttons behind the scenes. So that capability to enable the control, super easy to set up. Literally type the manufacturer's name in and you get a whole list of different connections. So it's a much different approach. And I think if people are familiar with BitFocus's previous software companion, that was something they had released for free. Buttons is something that is much more developed for the professional market.
Okay.
There are different tiers for it. And I'd be remiss to say this, as Elgato, we actually put finance, we're a stake in what they're doing. So our efforts have been combined recently for the purpose of when we're recording this video so that there's more and more working in conjunction. So we're putting our own efforts behind them as well to say, we want to make sure that this thing is as successful and is as broad as possible.
Absolutely. So it's really giving you the best of the hardware design with the software to make everything kind of work together to give you that production environment.
I think this slide, just gives like a simple example of like what an environment might be in where there's different control stations, there's ATEMs. In this case, this image has a vMix in it. The number of points of versatility you can have between audio control, video control, even things that we don't traditionally see in broadcast. I might be interfacing with the blinds. Yep. I might be interfacing with the thermostat.
Sure.
All of these kind of different pieces are unique to what we do in the button space over what we would traditionally do on Stream Deck side.
And I think that's an important note. Someone coming from the Pro AV installation space who's used to configuring Crestron panels is going to end up with a very different looking design than someone like yourself that comes from a production environment.
Totally.
The unit can be configured to match not only production-wise what you want to do, but visually what you're used to looking at.
What you're used to looking at, and then it can be multi-purpose.
Yep.
So I could have it so that, hey, you know what? We're going to have, we got external people coming in to do our big keynote event. We got the production layout. Roll over to the next piece, and I have my, I'm just controlling what's on the different monitors and stuff like that. Pro AV, broadcast, it's always going to interoperate.
Pre-production, shut the blinds. Now production, camera 1, camera 2. It's that easy with this system.
Yeah, so I really want it to be as explicit as possible. So on this slide, I'm talking about what can I control?
Yep.
So switcher brands, something like the Kairos. Right. You can control the Kairos or something like this guy. You can control a Blackmagic device, a Ross device, a Grass Valley. The number of switchers is just so many in that space. Again, over 800 potential connections.
Yep.
PTZ cameras, PTZ optics, Panasonic, Sony, you name it, there's an option. So you could think of something as simple as, hey, you know what? I'm going to have one of these stations operate as a hybrid. I'm going to have someone be half switching, half PTZ control, right?
Yep.
Easy. Routing options are also possible. I think that's the one that makes the most sense when you think about this product. You think dropping this in a rack, now I have my router control. Now the opportunity to say, hey, my routing platform is a different platform than my switching platform.
Right.
Typically speaking, you got two guys basically. One guy's doing one, guy's doing another. Like it's just the way it's always been. With my Stream Deck Studio in place, I can now cross over these environments and not have to worry that, oh, you know what? Well, my switcher doesn't speak the protocol that the router doesn't speak, and the PTZ cameras are doing this thing. This guy's going to speak to everybody over the network. And then even conversion devices, thing like your Teradex, your KiloViews, those guys actually have control as well that you can work with. And then you brought it up earlier, there's all these automation platforms in the Pro AV space, your QSys, your Crestron, your Extron, those are also supported in the buttons ecosystem. So really the answer is becoming more and more yes. I mean, something I didn't put in here, Jim, that is, I've heard in the works, people want to just have like IR, like
Right.
where they just have a remote go, and the team is actually working on like ways to get those signals in so that you can even control those devices. So since moving from what was a sort of like freeware project with Companion to now buttons, and as well as Elgato putting our own efforts into it, we're seeing a lot more enablement with buttons and Stream Deck Studio.
In the future, this slide will have to change into what can't we control, right?
You know, it's an interesting space as we're heading into some big events in the industry with IBC around the corner. Cloud is now possible.
Yep.
Federation, where we can have these things sort of deployed in different environments with failover, is now possible. So the sky really starts to become the limit, and that's one of the beautiful things that now that we're working more in conjunction with these guys, we're taking what we learned from the consumer space and saying, okay, pros kind of want the same level of, yeah, I can do it, just with different, you know, different things they're controlling. That's what we're bringing with Stream Deck Studio and buttons.
And that leads us perfectly into the workflow examples that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Really to get our system integrators and dealers thinking about all the different ways this can be used.
Yeah, I think of some simple things in broadcast. You know, I just want to have my studios in different studios in my production, right?
Yep.
I want to be able to say, hey, you know what? In Studio A, we have a couple studios set up and they're ready to go.
Right.
But I also want to be able to give my engineering team some flexibility. That NFC chip becomes amazing where my engineers tap in. I can control the route of the entire facility. When I tap out, now this thing becomes just cameras A, B, C, and D.
Right.
I don't have to worry. In the corporate space, we sort of talked a little bit about that hybrid of I'm controlling appliances, I'm controlling just displays in the space, but I also can then run that auditorium's production using the studio. And then I would be remiss because live events is like where we sort of cut our teeth. The number of times where this becomes just the easy deploy surface for live events is great. And we're going to break down some of the specifics as we go through.
And I think one of the priorities with live events is having what you need available at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Everything is happening live. You don't have the luxury of waiting for things.
Sure.
You need to access what you need to get to very quickly.
Yeah.
Every event has a different production need. So the flexibility of how you can program these, I can have one side of it, let me select the switcher from camera 1 to camera 2.
Easy.
While the other side has the PTZ camera presets. So now when I'm on camera 1, I can go from a close-up to a wide shot very easily.
Yeah, that's the exact kind of workflows that we're seeing deployed. And we wanted to highlight some of the organizations that are currently working with us on Studio. So Fox has us, Capital One Arena has us in the traditional broadcast space. We even have some education organizations, you know, Boise State, University of Pittsburgh, Syracuse, who are leveraging Elgato products as part of their curriculum, but also as part of the events that they're doing. And these guys are operating just like any traditional broadcast would.
Absolutely.
So in that broadcast style workflow, I start to say, all right, well, you have a controller in your broadcast facility that controls probably your switcher, and maybe you have something that controls the routing panel. Well, something like a Stream Deck Studio allows us at a minimum to consolidate those two spaces, right? More and more I hear I have less to work with, whether it's space, whether it's people, whether it's funds. Well, hey, I could strap the Stream Deck Studio in there and just go and say, hey, look, I can do router control and switching control. I can also incorporate my graphics into this thing really easily. So now we get some versatility. And that's where that NFC we've been talking about becomes such a big piece of, you know what, morning show's ready, afternoon show's ready, engineering's ready. I could have it act as just a generic display. So in between when I'm filming or in between when I'm shooting and producing content, I could have the display just say, hey, you know what, at 5 o'clock we have, you know, the afternoon show, the late night shows coming up in the evening. The other cool thing that I think is easy to grasp, but people don't talk about enough is this is an IP native surface. There are so many different kinds of signals today that you want to work with. And you guys work with so many different kinds of products that either specialize in IP or SDI or HDMI. It does not matter for the purpose of the studio. It can handle all of those different kinds of signal diversities, Dante audio, other forms of IP. You know, all of those things can have a control point. And so I think of that total customization to say, you know what, for my show, actually, I'm a one-man band. I'm going to be switching cameras and punching audio, and I'm going to be doing my graphics. I've now configured my studio to just be that one consolidated space. And some guys actually have multiple stations where they can say, you know what, my graphics operator, he's got his expanded workflow, but I'm going to give him a second page just in case he needs to like cut a camera or something like that.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things our integrators like about Stream Deck Studio is in spaces where they are combining new equipment, new investments with legacy equipment,
Yeah.
the versatility of what buttons and your hardware will work with
Yeah.
gives them that flexibility.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to take a dedicated switcher with a dedicated control panel and say that is the only control solution in the room. You can add something like Stream Deck Studio very easily and scalable.
Right. And to your point about the legacy systems, we encounter this all the time in the SI level where it's just like, hey, this piece of the production is not changing. Like the dollars aren't there to make the new investment. They're in this, switcher ecosystem that's staying, right? The rest of the world may have moved on, but that may be the sort of point that's the crux of everything. Stream Deck Studio now acts as that sort of in between and say, no, we can speak with this legacy hardware and still get you access to something like a brand new 2110 system or one of the Turtle AV systems or something like that.
Absolutely. I think all the time, especially in the education space, where a grant is limited, the amount of products that they can upgrade at any given time.
Yeah.
Budget is always a concern.
Totally.
And the live event space, we already talked about the flexibility of being able to change from one production to the next. A production company could be doing a UFC event on the White House lawn one week and broadcasting a press conference in a studio control room the next.
And then they're doing a concert the next week, and then they're,
Exactly.
So when I think of us in the live event space, what the key thing is always deployment.
Yep.
Right? I can deploy these guys in so many capacities. And I think we actually have a video highlighting coming up that is literally a company that is deploying us for these live events. So we'll hit that. So this is a New Lion gym, and they were able to do this massive concert, basically deploying Stream Deck Studios throughout the facility. And it is just such a cool treat to see them in action because they're dropping them in combination with all kinds of different control systems. They have Stream Deck Studios deployed in conjunction with their traditional graphics platforms, but they're also using it with like the drone cameras. They just have this really unique setup where Stream Deck Studio made sense. They can put 15 of them all throughout the facility, all on the network, and at any given moment, they're setting fireworks off. They're controlling screens. It's just a really, really cool setup, and I think it really highlights in this live event space where things are different. We talked about user deployment.
Yep.
You highlighted something earlier about there's always this one crucial thing that happens in the Madness of Live. For me, you always know it's the mic. Somebody's mic that wasn't muted, needed to be, or someone wasn't supposed to be muted and is.
Yep. And
just being able to have that little extra button that says, hey, at all of these stations, at the hardest part of our show, when we have 5 people leaving the stage and 2 people are coming on, and we have to pass the microphones on, just have a button automated for that.
Yep.
But also have the button that comes out of that at everyone's station just in case. We're human. People are going to miss a cue every now and then. Just being able to say, oh, hey, you know what? I got that backup button. I can unmute is really good. And creating that redundancy is part of that. The other thing that is unique in the live events, and this might resonate if you've ever done a live event or helped somebody consult on one of these, typically the room is locked in the sense that once the gear is in there, my operator has to stay there. All of the people associated with that production are in that space.
Right.
Which means I typically have my best operators in my biggest rooms. If I wanted to have any sort of flexibility in that, I end up either making concessions in my gear, or I kind of have a crapshoot on like, well, am I going to risk the main stage show because somebody needs to take a break? With the studio and the NFC, I could have it so that if your operation style is different from mine, well, when you tap your card in, it's ready to go for you. And when I tap my card in, it's ready to go for me. This is literally coming from my own experience having done live events where it's like, occasionally you want to take a break. You've been on a 12-hour esports stream and you haven't been able to get lunch. Well, the fact that I could have somebody actually pop in, tap their card in, and still be able to do the show, I could walk away for 30 minutes, eat a sandwich, and not be worried that, well, because I was driving it and I'm like more of a power user, my stuff might not be for the average guy. Well, if Joe comes in, taps in, boom, he's ready to go. And I think that's something unique that we can offer that a normal control surface probably can't give them.
Absolutely. And again, what you pointed out with the microphones is now we're taking audio controls and configuring that into a portion. We talked about the switcher controls. We talked about the camera controls. That flexibility of really combining three pieces of equipment to get the buttons that you need to drive that production is really the unique selling proposition of this product.
Yeah, it does so much. And I think in this, we're looking at corporate AV now. I drive home the conversation of most of the corporate AV spaces the integrators are going to come into are retrofitted.
Yep.
It's a IT closet. Literally, one of these pictures we have is like in the background of a brickwork of some building that they have. They're putting this wherever they can, right?
Sure.
So inevitably, you're going to need your solution to be wherever it needs to be, and that's where Stream Deck Studio, I think, fits really uniquely for that corporate space.
Absolutely. It really gives you that capabilities that you need, allowing you to configure with all those different systems, right?
You got to set up the boardroom for the event, right? CEO, the C-suite's coming in, so we want all the monitors to be in a specific environment. Okay, I got that button on here for the pre-show setup, right? They want it to be 68 degrees. I got that button for here, right? We're going to make it so that the PTZ cameras are in this position. We're going to set up those different kinds of microphones, which have all the correction that they need for that sort of like group environment. That's all going to be configured on here. And then if this is maybe one of those auditorium spaces where it's multi-purpose, turn the dial, tap the card, and now I'm ready to actually shoot and produce the show.
Perfect.
Cool in the corporate environment is I can use the display when I'm off hours to just show what's the next meeting in the room.
Yep.
Who's coming up next? Oh, actually, you know what? The CIO's got this room next. I actually have an organization we're working with that's going to use the tap-in to allow the operator, to allow somebody approaching it to almost like schedule like a quick 15-minute meeting. So they would use the dials after they tap in the card, and it would give them like the day of the week and let them like effectively connect to their system and say, oh, at 3:15, I'm going to do a 15-minute meeting, so I'm going to use the room. And so that is built in and using the IP to work in their whole custom scheduling software. So in the corporate space, this thing does a lot of weird instances where you might just think, hey, we're going to put it behind the IT closet. You can actually have this thing forward facing in a wall bracket, and just like somebody could punch in before they go into a room and say, oh, you know what? Looks like they have a meeting coming up. We'll go to another space.
And equally as important, you can tap out and prevent the CEO from having access to anything.
Yes. Before we, as just to round it out, I wanted to show some of the cool multi-setups and just, drive home the fact that in general, you're going to be getting these things not just as a solo surface, you're going to combining them. And then I think on the next slide, I really highlight how the whole ecosystem can come together, where we actually have 2 Stream Deck Studios being highlighted. There's a Stream Deck XL on the table, so that's being hooked up to the front of one of them. And if you have Stream Deck, we can actually have a software version of the interface. So they're highlighting that in this instance, they have buttons on that tablet. Okay. So they could actually go through and sort of run as a sort of like small software panel. So a lot of different layers to how the control could be deployed. In that instance, maybe a more traditional broadcast environment. But I think of something you brought up in the school space where I could have one of these just doing an auditorium control. I could have one of these be part of the broadcast curriculum at the high school or college level. I could have one of these in the IT space doing who knows what, because it's just connecting to a bunch of Netgear devices. Like it's got a lot of different layers and those different applications. And one of the reasons I wanted to make sure I highlighted everything in particular is sometimes when you talk about this stuff, it's a little bit high-minded, and if you're not an engineer, your brain doesn't immediately go to the immediate use case. Yep. But once you start to see those connections, it's just the brain starts to go. And their website, the BitFocus website, has over 800 connections. Like I said, you could just type a name of a manufacturer and see what they have. And even for things that aren't explicitly covered, some of this stuff, like I think of like Visca protocol in the PTZ world, there are some generic connectors, so you can really control a large variety of things, even if there's a name brand ready for it.
And that's one of the reasons why I want to recommend that all of our dealers start the conversation with Broadfield. We have Glenn and our sales engineering team. Yes. We have access to Chris and the team at Elgato. If there is something that you're thinking about and you're not sure if it can be done or if it has been done, reach out to us. We have visibility to a lot of these different projects, and we'll be happy to share that knowledge and experience everywhere along the way. Yeah. And that really answers the question, why Stream Deck Studio, right? 100%.
I think that's it in a nutshell. You have so many different options of control, so many different ways to configure it. And that unique visual feedback layer means that it's really easy to train this thing, right? I'm going to make it work for my users. It's really easy to expand and deploy these things because of how simple it is to just get this on the network. And inevitably, what we care about is that we have less wasted time and less errors, so that my customers, my clients, are happier when they're using the product. And that's what we see with Stream Deck Studio.
And I will tell you from a system integration point of view, when you can take a control surface like this, custom configure it for your client's needs, that is what adds the value and the long-term relationship that you have as an integrator with your customers. You've now given them that value add that you've promised when you've made that introduction.
I mean, some of the manufacturers, some of the groups we have on this slide right here, these industry giants that we have,
Yep.
not just traditional, we have media companies, we have groups like, Fox, we have groups like NBC Universal, but we also have organizations like Google, organizations like Oracle, gaming sort of being our bread and butter, Riot and Twitch are going to be big users of us.
Sure.
But I think of something like Dropbox and Nike. These are not traditional companies that would use a product like this if you thought about it, but the versatility is there. It is just really amazing how this thing has expanded. And to your point, we have so much that we've done together in these different workflows that it's definitely worth your time to reach out.
Absolutely. So if you have any questions about the Stream Deck Studio, reach out to your Broadfield sales rep at 800-634-5178. We have a good relationship, obviously, with Chris and the Elgato team, so we can help loop you in to get those conversations started. Take advantage of that bundle promotion that we have right now. Let's talk about your multi-site configurations and how Stream Deck Studio can help you every step along the way. Chris, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.
Always a pleasure.
Broadfield Distributing is a value-added distributor of live production, streaming, video editing, and storage products. We only sell to resellers. We are always looking for new dealers, so call us at 1-800-634-5178 or email sales@broadfield.com. You'll like doing business with Broadfield because we make it easy to do business.